to welcome back to New Realities. I'm Alan Steinfeld. I'm very happy to be hosting this bi-weekly channeling roundtable with Justin Land. And we've been talking to lots of people, lots of different channels. And we have a really great cast today, a great crew, I would say. And let me just go around the board. And we have Tyler Ellison, who I met probably 3 or 4 years ago, channeling Ryoke, which is Essassani. If you listen to Bashar, you know that the Essassanis were part of that civilization. But I think you channel more than that, right, Tyler?
So when I first started, I was channeling a lot of different beings. But recently I found that Ryoke has become sort of the main one. And I find myself becoming increasingly more comfortable channeling him and sort of accessing the wisdom that's needed. So there's been less of a draw towards these other beings, but occasionally he'll patch them through. We've had many transmissions where he'll, kind of like we did in New York, right? Where I was in the state and other beings would come through. He'll sort of do that for me if it's really necessary. And then occasionally other folks will come through the channel.
Yeah, really exciting stuff. And then we have my good friend Geraldine Orozco, who had a pretty dramatic awakening, coming from a kind of mainstream world, and one day, boom, she just, well, you could tell your story a little later, but dealing a lot with, she does weekly, maybe even daily sometimes, activations online and bringing in the ET energies to reprogram the DNA. And anything else you want to say about the reprogramming process?
Yeah, this is a service that I do. And so being able to see the multidimensional body, I tap in and we take a look at how to deprogram what we can say is matrix programming, down to the DNA cellular level of the organic system. So, yeah.
Great. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you.
And then my new friend, Sarah Blumenfeld Curley. I met her on I guess it was a light language panel at the New Life Expo, and very gentle, very calming energy, but there's something huge coming through her and opening up. And we'll talk a little bit about you there, Sarah, about, how do you access these realms and what's kind of the favorite subject to bring through?
I had an awakening in my mid-30s, and I guess I opened up through meditation and Reiki, but I really started just hearing light language, and then it was dominating my consciousness so much that I started to hear it all the time and spontaneously speak it all the time. I had a series of downloads where my body would vibrate and shake. I had no idea what was happening to me. I had a close knit group of friends where I was able to share, and then they provided me with a space to channel, and then it went from light language to then English, and different beings have come through. I have a very strong connection with Source, and channeling is who I am. I can't imagine doing anything else. I mean, I do other things, but I feel like it's in my heart,
Great, beautiful. Thanks for joining us. And Justin, my co-host, actually, it's really your sort of idea to put together channels every week. I mean, I just bring it all in. So it's but you're focusing on this, which is great. So talk about that whole idea.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I have many interests, but for some reason, obviously, channeling has become kind of a dominant one at the moment. The information that comes through just resonates so well, and I think there's so much guidance that's available to us through channels and the material, and it's becoming obvious that there are more and more channelers popping up, and with slightly different messages, but from very much a positive sort of in general. And I think that the many different perspectives are helping us in this time.
Why do you think there's so many people channeling?
Well, I think it's interesting. Obviously, Tyler's an example of somebody who he's told me obviously that he picked it up through first watching Darryl Anka, and I'm correct, Tyler, right? And you were curious about it, like I am also. I know I'm picking up a lot of skills, and there's something else going on here for me as well. But you literally saw it was possible, and then kind of got into that vibrational state of allowing and receiving. And I think people are seeing that there are such a thing as channelers, that it's a possibility, that we're always channeling anyways, just what we can choose what we desire to channel. And that's the exciting aspect here, I think, is just a self-realization that we have the power to channel our reality. And people are doing that more and more. I mean, in a conscious way.
Yeah, no, but you yourself are not a channel, right?
Not a vocal channel. No, I do write, and I get information. I get visions, but I'm not putting myself out there like Tyler is and Sarah, and I think that's a hat up to that, because it takes a lot. It's easier now though, because so many people are doing it, that others can now come out of the closet. And
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Is that you're saying that's true? Because
Yeah, when I first started channeling, maybe like 7 years ago, and speaking light language, no one around me was channeling or speaking light language. So for me, it was kind of difficult in that way, because I was like, oh my God, what's happening to me? But as I've started channeling, I think more recently, it seems like everyone's channeling now and speaking light language, so which is a good thing. But
right. Tyler, were you going to say something about that, or I'll talk?
Well, I think the reason so many people are getting into it now is because the channeling is sort of a side effect of the proximity to contact, where when someone's channeling, they're really exploring that link between themselves and their counterparts, right? And their counterparts might be an extraterrestrial, could be a Sasquatch, could be a nature spirit, and they're sort of anchoring in that reality for the collective, so it becomes more accessible to humanity. So I think more people doing this is a side effect of the collective essentially saying it's ready for these sort of extraordinary communications. And I think that's why we're seeing the increase.
Right. And for you too, Geraldine, because you work with a lot of people one-on-one, you are in the trenches with these people. What are you seeing?
You know, it's really beautiful. I feel that over the past 5-6 years, the veils per se are thinning, in a sense where we are becoming aware of our multidimensionality. And I think it kind of goes in alignment with how we're evolving technologically, on Earth. It's like we're becoming aware of the biotechnology of the body and how to manage and work with that information. And in that merging, we're understanding that the non-physical is actually the higher directive of this entire simulation that we're taking a part of. So it's very interesting. And as we become aware of our source, of our infinite source consciousness that is available to us, we begin to activate technologies like light language, like telepathic communication, all kinds of things that are a part of this kind of system, this biosystem. And we're kind of just becoming aware of that. It's a beautiful thing what's happening. And I see that every day with my clients.
And we are like moving the evolutionary markers, I feel, by allowing a panel like this to even exist, right? I mean,
for sure.
Maybe 10 or 20 years ago, this would have been totally crazy. Now it's only a little crazy. But no, I'm very happy everyone's here, because I feel the mind, the brain, whatever this thing is the most sophisticated equipment we have as interdimensional communication devices. And just for me, I find if I meditate, I can feel more of myself. Is that true? You're shaking your heads there.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think what Geraldine said too about the veil being thinner than ever, it's almost as if I sit down and I don't need to do much to get into that space, and I feel the connection immediately. It's such a beautiful thing. It's like instant. There they are. There we are together, one. No separation. It's just right there, and it seems more so recently, and not much to like not much preparation, just sitting and feeling it right away,
Right.
you know?
Yeah. And Justin, you were talking about the phenomena itself. And, when I saw my first channeling, it's like, what is going on? But I like it.
Yeah.
And this was with Ramtha. If you know who Ramtha is, the woman Jay-Z Knight channels, this Lemurian warrior. This was in the 80s. And what Ramtha said to the audience, he says, everyone wants to know what channeling is, what's coming through here. He said the bigger mystery is what's coming through there, even in our ordinary state. What's coming through this body of ours? What are we channeling every single minute, right?
Wow,
So
that's pretty cool.
I know, it's like, wow, that is interesting. Where are these voices and this energy coming from?
I think that was a very powerful experience for you too, because I've noticed that with channelers is the certainty that comes through in that message. There is no hesitation. It's just, it is knowing, and this, we don't witness that too much. It's often people who you can find out a little bit of, there's something, always a little bit of a wobble in our normal persona. But when it comes from that space, it's just a definite, vibration of steady truth. And then it feels just otherworldly. And so it's definitely a spiritual experience to, be for me to witness this.
That channeling was my initiation into spirituality. When I saw that being in this audience, and this woman went to a trance, it was a full trance channel, and her body changed, her neck grew, her eyes went from blue to a big black eye, big black pupils. And I said, something is happening here. I don't know what it is, like that Bob Dylan song. But everyone here, just before we go into it, it would be great to just share a little bit of your story, because I think it's all very dramatic, and on a human scale, like Geraldine, why don't you tell yours, because I find that really fascinating. I mean, an abridged version, we could.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so I mean, I've been teaching, I founded Bay Area Meditation here in San Francisco. We teach corporate meditation. I've been doing that since 2008, and that's kind of where my awakening kind of began, where I really started to question reality. And it took me into hours of deep meditation a day. And in 2013, I had this incredible life-changing experience where I had a contact experience. I was literally taken out of my bedroom into craft and introduced to all kinds of information about the structure of our reality, hybrid children, and it completely changed the way I looked at reality. And so after that, it took me a while until 2017. But the amazing thing is that the very next day after that contact experience, I had activated all these psychic abilities. I could see the multidimensional body. I could see chords. I could see how the soul attached to the body. So I began to really understand everything that I had kind of seen in meditation and read about, before, started to make a lot of sense, started to understand the functions of that. And in 2017, I had hypnotherapy regression, and I started to channel incredible amounts of information. I think it came to a point where I was a complete blank slate. And so the information that started to come in was just, mind-blowing. And what I realized, that everything I had been talking about were things that had already been, researched and looked at, things that I've never even considered before, from the physics, really complicated astrophysics of the universe, to our historical guide, lines or timelines. And so I started to progress. I had a near-death experience, and shortly after that, I started to speak light language as well. And I began to really understand what we're creating, how we're co-creating here, at least from my perspective. So this is kind of how it is. And I have a support group, hybridmother.com, and we are a support group for experiencers, hybrid parents, and I research the phenomena of the hybridization program.
Great. No, that is a great one question. You didn't have you were meditating before, but you were sort of like outside of it. This experience you had, you weren't prepared at all for, or maybe you were, I don't know.
No, well, the funny thing is that I had been going down this spiritual rabbit hole really, really deep. And so I think what happened, and of course what happens to us, is that we begin to activate or connect with the fragments of ourselves that are in other dimensional timelines. And so this is what happened. I touched a fragment of myself that was this interdimensional bloodline within, I don't know, Pleiadian or whatever it was. And so that was the first time I even considered ET contact. I mean, I didn't even think about ET contact before that moment. So it was just mind blowing. And even more so, hybrid children. I mean, the whole concept about that, like, where does this come from? And am I the only one? And of course, I'm not. There's so many people. And it goes down back to the history of even human inception on this planet. So, yeah.
Well, isn't it satisfying to know when you get the idea of hybrid ET children that you find other people who actually are talking about that? I mean,
it's amazing, and thank God that they are. And we should be talking about it more, because I think it really speaks to ourselves as hybrids. I mean, we are a cocktail of DNA, and so it really helps us understand, what we're doing here in this collective, co-creation. Yeah.
Great. Thank you for that. And I mean, Tyler's one of my favorite hybrids.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that, Alan.
I think we all are here, because you got into it a little more gradually, right, Tyler, when you started to talk about that?
Well, I pretty much had like a really powerful personality shift right around like 2012, 2013, where I was I would classify myself pre-2012 as a pretty negative person. Like I was attempting to make friends and be at a level of oneness with everyone, but I really just had a big negative ego that was like really self-centered and selfish. And eventually it got to this point where I realized, like, okay, I'm done with that and I'm ready to open my heart. And as soon as I made that conscious choice to stop being like so self-centered and open my heart, I pretty much had like a psychedelic awakening that was incredible.
What happened? What
I started doing what a lot of shamans would do, where they would just drop in and like ask their heart questions, like, how do I go about the situation? What do I do? And I just did it like all the time, to the point where I was only listening to my heart, and it was so disruptive to my family life, to everything. Everything shifted, and eventually it sort of whirlpooled me into, I guess you could call, like a Kundalini awakening, where I started seeing entities around me. I was able to see the acupuncture meridians like glowing on my body, golden orbs and shadow orbs like moving around me too. I could see like my own kind of light dark consciousness like displayed with open eyes like on me, and it was very powerful. And eventually I moved away from my hometown shortly after that, because I just had to do something else other than stay where I was. The energy was so different, I couldn't remain in the same location. And I just pretty much started training. I started learning a lot about the body, about health, wellness, but in particular, how to use wellness to activate the DNA, right? Which is the hot topic of today, right? How do I activate my centers, my hormonal endocrine centers with nutrition? How do I turn on my pineal gland? I just really got into that direction. And then I started having ET stuff. I started seeing craft. At first it was subtle, like it looks like a constellation, like a triangular constellation, but it would move with my vehicle. Like I'd be driving and I'd be like, oh, that's interesting. Those stars are forming an equilateral triangle. But then I'd keep driving. I'm like, that thing is moving with my car. That's not normal. And it happened twice. And by the second time, I was like, okay, something's going on. I didn't understand it. And the third time it happened, I was in Connecticut. I had moved from my hometown since then. And me and like 5 other people were in a car. We were driving back from our work shift, and we were on the highway, and we just saw this triangular UFO hovering over the canopy of a forest off to the side of the highway. And we all just looked at it. No one said anything for probably about 30 seconds. And we were like, you guys see that, right? And everyone was like, yeah, that is not normal. Oh my God. And around that time, I was just practicing channeling. I was channeling Pleiadians. I started out with that. But with all the triangle hybrid stuff, I was like, I feel like I should put my attention into this hybrid, human direction, because I feel like they're the ones that are really making contact with me. And I started to shift my channeling focus at that time away from the Pleiadians, more into the Sasani. And I've been doing that ever since. So it was a period of transition that began around 2012, and then around 20, I want to say 19 became like my total focus. Where now essentially every day I'm channeling. And yeah.
Did you want to go to acupuncture school because you had seen the acupuncture points light up? Is that
well, I wanted to be able to have some kind of mainstream way in, so I was like, what's a way I can like access the mainstream community with like that image of sort of like knowledge authority? Like, what's a way I can get in there that's not like some kind of, to me, pointless thing, something that I really love. And the most mainstream, like esoteric thing I could think of was acupuncture, because it's medically accepted. So that was sort of what prompted me to move into that direction.
Great. Thanks. And did something like that happen to you? You were kind of mainstream, right, Sarah, for a while? Or no?
What I was.
What happened? How did you wake up?
I think I had kind of a different kind of a childhood. My grandmother was a medium, and she was ordained in the Church of Spirituality. And so I think that kind of gave me an edge where these things weren't so abnormal, but I really had a down point in my life. I think a lot of growth happens when we're down and out and we really don't know who we are. I got a divorce, I quit my job. I just started meditating like all day. And because I'm an artist, I'm a very visual person. So what would happen is during meditation, I would get crazy visualizations. And then I started to develop in a spiritual group, and I would start seeing beings, all kinds of beings. I would think they were my guides. I would see other people's beings. Then eventually I had an idea to start channeling, like drawing people's spirit guides for them and channeling messages. So a lot of my channeling came through like written and artwork. So then I started developing and taking Reiki, because that's kind of mainstream, right? Reiki, everyone knows Reiki. But then the attunements, I think, really opened me up. I remember I got my Reiki 2 attunement, and she put her hands on me and I heard Anunnaki. And I was like, what the hell is that? So I really had no awareness. I think things just came. I didn't seek it out. It just came. Everything came. I think you talked about seeing Bashar. I saw Abraham, like in New Jersey. And I remember seeing her and being like you said, Alan, I don't know what that is really, but that's awesome. And I feel like I'm going to be doing that. And then, like I said, the light language came in. I started shaking and getting convulsions. I kind of just taught myself. I had the support of people coming to see me. And at first, I think I was like this oddity that everyone would like show up and be like, what is this? But as we really started getting into like deeper things, and people weren't just being satisfied, like a mediumship reading, like, tell me, am I going to get that job? Because divine beings don't really want to talk about those kind of things. They'll kind of reverse it to you, like, do you want that job? And so I think less and less it started to kind of wean off, and then more serious people started really coming. And then I went back to school for social work. So I went heavily into the channeling, and then I took a break. And then I've evolved. I started channeling this energy called Amana, and that was all I was channeling was Amana. And then I started channeling Yeshua. He came to me, a very special relationship. And now it seems like it's mostly a collective of light beings, just oneness, all oneness of a collective of just this light collective that really has no name. It just is all about love and oneness. And so like a condensed version of everything.
Was that an evolution to start to go from the individual channeled beings to this collective love vibration?
Because and what I find too is people search for names. They want to know, like, who is this? What is this being? And I feel like there's no ego there. So they don't ever really step forward and say, I am, sometimes in light language, so give a mouthful, but it's really like there's just no agenda in knowing who we are. It's just to connect you and to be here and to help you elevate. So I think sometimes that keeps me away from channeling for masses, like, because I don't feel like people always understand. So I've kind of keep myself more low key now.
Right.
Um,
But you do coach people, spiritual coach, and
yeah, I'm doing more of like life coaching, spiritual coaching. But you know, I do pull light language through and I use it in my practice, and I do educate people, and people, you would think people would be like, that's weird, but people are very curious, and I feel like one of my purposes here is to make it less weird and
Right.
to really say like this is the vehicle of the higher self. That's all it is. And it seems to be kind of like planting seeds, right? They use planting these little seeds, and I love talking about light language and speaking to it about with people. And
Oh, could you well, after everyone goes, talk about DNA in particular and program, and all right, and Justin, you want to add anything?
No, I think that's I'm very much interested in what kind of maybe about the subject of light language. How does that actually come in and into your expression? So I've seen people channel light language, and it's tonalities, obviously without words or concepts. Is that maybe the precursor to the level of like verbal channeling, where, like you said, actually Geraldine also received light language? Is that like a preparatory for the mind to kind of understand something it really can't understand yet?
yeah.
To kind of expand the box a bit of possibility, right?
Yes, and I think that's one of the reasons why I like using it as a tool, because it kind of, I always say to people, it forces you to get into your heart, because the mind's like, I can't compute, I can't understand. So it kind of drops you into your heart center, you know?
Is it
Yeah.
like I mean, I know Daniel Scranton, he was actually supposed to be on the show today, but he had because of his baby couldn't but when he gets into that state before he's channeling, he uses a lot of tonality. And is that kind of what light language is as well? That I mean,
It
how
can
would
be.
Yeah. For
maybe
you too, Geraldine, for you, how?
Yeah, the way I see light language is, we tend to think as language. What is language? Language are patterns of sounds, and what they are is they're patterns of vibrational frequencies. And so the same thing when we're tapping into a language, it's very much like DNA, how DNA is written. There's a certain code and order to the words and to the sequence of things. So when we tap into light language, we're tapping into just a translation of another dimensional expression, basically. And what it is, it's a in our human terms, it's a verbal communication, but it's very much light, color, shape, like sacred geometry. We're kind of speaking that out in the best way that we can kind of communicate that through a verbal expression. They're patterns of this very, very deeply encoded information. It's quite holographic, actually, when we tap into that. Yeah.
Beautiful. That's a great explanation.
Yeah, that is a great explanation. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Tyler, you don't do the light language much, do you? Or maybe I haven't heard it. No.
I've played around with it for a little bit, but for me, it was not necessarily a way of expressing that resonated with me as powerfully as channeling in ways that are utilizing words that are discernible by the mind. That's for me been a bigger just love and attraction. So that's where I dedicate my attention.
Well, do you want to start then maybe and bring through some Ryoke reprogramming, talking about how this time is a time where all our, old structures are being uplifted and changed and transformed? I mean, that's what I'm thinking is
Sure,
happening.
I can bring him through. I want to use the restroom real quick.
Okay, sure. We'll talk amongst ourselves. But go ahead, go do what you have to do. But I do think that Sarah and Geraldine, it's kind of similar that you both got that same sort of message about light language, and that it kind of helps us go beyond our mind. You were going to ask something, right, Justin? About
well, I mean, I know that light. So, do you guys also see the vibration of an audio audio vibration as visual as well, and is it also kind of a dual sensory experience of like one message that can be shifted into an interpretation of light and an interpretation of that audio. Is that getting a little too multidimensional? But that's what we're talking about, right? A multi-dimensional concept.
Yeah.
You want to answer, Geraldine?
Go ahead,
Sure.
Geraldine.
Sure. The way I personally see it is very much holographic. It's very much like structures of light. And when I work with people, depending on their lineage, on their star lineage, I tap into that specific language or channel for that person. And so it'll come in as a message that only they will understand. The vibrational patterns will adjust to their DNA structure, because we are all structures of these biostructures of light. And we are a combination of crystalline, liquid, and of course this energy. And so what this is that it speaks to that kind of biostructure. And so it can kind of create openings for them to connect with their ET counterparts that are in their lineage or their aspects of themselves, and also provide healing, activation within that DNA. So I see it very much when I speak. It's like you're almost creating shapes. You use your hands a lot, and it kind of comes out in the hands, and it comes out through the sounds that you make. And you create these kinds of holographic structures that they really only mean something to you, really, unless another person can tap into that information.
And it's a very intuitive experience, right? It's just something that I'm allowing. I'm not thinking I have to, my spirit just allows for it to communicate with your spirit, and you take in what you need to take in, and I'm just the conduit for that. Sometimes I'll get a feeling of what's going on, but that's not really important. It's just the surrender to what needs to be communicated, right? It's just,
And I think I'm sorry, Alan.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead, Geraldine.
I was going to say, sometimes I get images in addition to what I'm speaking, and I will very clearly know what's being spoken, but it's in such a way that we humans, we can't really translate. It comes in as pictures, sounds, and unless you understand those languages of shape, sound, and color, you probably wouldn't be able to decipher that. It would just sound like jumble, So it's very much intuitive, as she was saying.
And for each person, each person you're working with, it has to be a totally different vibration, because they are.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely. And also, like Geraldine was saying, depending on their lineage and what's coming through. Sometimes song will come through. It'll feel like an invocation. Sometimes it'll feel like, like encoding, like turning on little switches of remembering. Sometimes it'll feel like clearing. It all depends, and each sound and tone has its own purpose.
Great. I think Tyler's getting into a state here. Okay, Tyler.
Sure.
Go ahead, go for it if you want.
Perfect. So I'll dive in, and then play with Ryoke as long as you all prefer.
Okay, well we'll go around maybe a couple of times, do like 10 or 15, then we'll kind of just see, or however long, and then someone else could jump into the pool, let's say, and okay, we'll just splash around. Okay, yeah.
Sounds good. Pool party.
I grew up on Long Island, Sarah. So all right, go ahead.
right, and we thank you so much for the unique co-creation of this interaction. As always, it is our civilization's highest joy, passion, and ecstasy to be able to speak to you and to all members of your species through the channel. And we extend to all of you the following question: how are you doing this day?
Awesome. Thanks, Ryoke.
Great. Thanks for asking.
Yes, of course, and thank you for allowing us to play with you through the channel. How would you like to proceed with this interaction this day?
Well, I thought the theme would be sort of why, how, and what we can do to help facilitate the change in DNA that's happening as the new frequencies come into the planet. I mean, that's anything from anyone else would like to add to that? Justin?
Well, and maybe in connection with the actual idea of contact, maybe that we're getting closer to actual contact as our vibrations obviously gone up a lot. I'm guessing the 2023 was Bashar's. He's moved it a bit closer to us now. The window of contact. I don't know if Rio can also maybe confirm this.
All right. We will begin with these ideas. Understand that all of you are hybrid beings already. For your species, what you consider to be Homo sapien is a hybrid species. You are all, in that sense, genetically modified by other extraterrestrial beings. The first being the Anunnaki, and different groups after that throughout your species timeline. And as you allow for more of who and what you are to be expressed through you in all that you do, you raise the overall energetic frequency of your body. And you do this through raising the frequency of your DNA. So understand that your DNA, mechanically speaking, teleports in different frequencies of photonic light. Some of these frequencies are a part of your visible light spectrum, some of them are not. And some of this light is related to different realities that are physical, like yours. Some of these frequencies of light are related to non-physical realities. So understand that the type of light that is, in a sense, not a part of your visible light spectrum is a frequency of light that is more so connected to the realm of spirit, more so connected to the plane of existence that houses, so to say, the higher self, the higher mind. Some of these different realities are also related to that of the soul, the oversoul. So as you choose to be yourself and to follow your joy, you are allowing for the DNA to receive higher and higher and higher frequencies of light, which in turn increase the overall frequency of your physical bodies. And because you are all hybridized and you share genetic information with a wide variety of species, as you allow in more of that light, you are also allowing into your DNA different levels of energies that are pertinent to different extraterrestrial realities. And as you allow for the DNA to open up more and more and more, that translates as you all becoming more energetically resonant with these different extraterrestrial species and their realities that are genetically linked to you. So ET contact and DNA activation, DNA upgrading is all something that, from our point of view, is a side effect of you choosing to be more of yourself. And as you choose to do that unconditionally in all experiences that you have, you align yourself with the realities of open contact as a side effect of you choosing to be you and to see more of yourself.
But is there anything we could do to make that easier, smoother, facilitate this opening consciously? Can we do something?
The idea is to allow for yourself to let go of the negative belief systems that, in a sense, create what you would consider to be negative separation between you and the rest of your human family. For when you put up what you would consider to be walls against your human family, when you attempt to put people in boxes or put yourself in a box, that energy does not just play out on the human level, it also plays out in what you would consider to be the level that represents the bubble reality that is a blend of your species and extraterrestrial species. So we would encourage you, let go of the different types of negative walls that you put up against yourself, against your human family. And as you bring those walls down, as you let go of those negative belief systems, you will accelerate your progress in relationship to contact with many different types of extraterrestrial species, eventually our extraterrestrial species as well.
And what about the question Justin posed about a date for actual meeting in a reality where we can both verify the existence beyond a physical meeting, I'm saying? What?
Right now, you're all in a disclosure process. And this process will continue and will accelerate up into the year 2023. Once you move past 2023, contact experiences will get much more pronounced. It will become more of a mainstream phenomenon. More and more and more members of your species will become aware of extraterrestrial presence. And this will continue to increase. And by the time you are at 2027, you will be at a particular tipping point where, based on how your species relates to that awareness of the extraterrestrial presence, we will either rapidly assimilate, so to say, with your world, or we will draw back a little bit so your species can really organize and collectively decide how to proceed. So from 2023 to 2027, more contact will be had. And
Right.
by 2027, it will either accelerate into assimilation, or there will be some time for your species to organize and really determine what is the preferred direction for all of you.
So the work that Sarah and Geraldine are doing as part of this groundwork for preparation, would you say? That's what I would think.
Yes.
That's what so.
Yes, very much so. Understand, any exercise that is designed to allow for you to become more of yourself, from our point of view, is preparatory work to allow for yourselves to become more vibrationally compatible with us and other extraterrestrial species that desire contact with all of you.
Are you evolving too? Why are you helping us?
We are, in a sense, returning a favor.
Okay.
For without your species, we would not exist. So because we are genetically linked to you, and because your species, in a sense, has given rise to ours, we are making this type of contact with all of you to repay that favor and to assist all of you in becoming more of yourselves, so you can create the versions of your planet that you prefer.
Right.
And understand, we are evolving, we are climbing the ladder, we are shifting into frequencies of reality that to you would be fifth dimensional, would be non-physical altogether. And we have many beings that are assisting us in that process. And we are assisting all of you in that process. In a sense, vibrating more closely with the frequency of reality that we are all in. And by the time your species is there, we will be assisting you all in evolving into non-physical frequencies of reality, one step at a time.
Right. Just in case people don't know, the Essasanis, from what I understand, which Ryoke is part of, borrowed our genetics because they're the grays, little grays, were reaching an evolutionary dead end, and they needed what we have: emotion, creativity, unpredictability, to be infused in order for them to keep evolving towards the oneness. Is that right? Am I getting that right, Ryoke?
This is accurate. Our species exists because of the hybridization program that the beings you call the Greys began to essentially ensure that their species and their DNA would not go extinct. Right. Which is where they were headed, because they, in a sense, severed their relationship with nature.
Right. And that's sort of the crossroads we're at now. And I think we're in a big reset. Would you agree with that?
Yes,
right?
you're all reworking the idea of your relationship with one another and your physical reality and ultimately your planet, so you can allow for those different levels to come into balance, so you can experience a version of Earth that truly relates to your highest joy, your highest passion, collectively.
You have anything to ask, Geraldine, Sarah, Justin, Gerald? No? Okay. Any message you want to leave us with, and maybe you could come back a little later after we go around once, about just how, yeah, you say being open, but what can we practically do to open that window in our consciousness to let in the frequencies that maybe we're not doing?
The idea is to understand that your consciousness exists on many different levels. When we say follow your passion, there are many different ways that you can follow your passion, that you can follow your joy. We would encourage you, expand your imagination so you can learn how to follow your passion on different levels of reality. So there are different physical actions that you can take that allow for you to be able to demonstrate more of who you are in the physical reality. There are different types of energetic, psychic actions that you can also take that allow for you to demonstrate more of who you are on that energetic level. So we would encourage you, really explore these different levels that your consciousness exists on and follow your joy in each of these different levels. And this will lead you into a holistic process of self-discovery that will enable you to not only develop a greater sensitivity to your spirit guides and the different extraterrestrial beings you are connected to, but it will also allow for you to demonstrate in the physical reality physical actions that act as grounding actions for those energetic experiences, thus allowing for the extraterrestrial realities to have greater relevance physically for your species. So follow your passion and your joy on every single level that you are connected to.
Great. Justin, anything you want to jump in?
Well, I think it's obviously this time of the coronavirus and this idea of new energies coming in. It is an acceleration of the energy, and it's for us, obviously, that we're going into these bubbles of constriction in some ways in our physical realities. Is it because we're expanding so quickly in the inside, or people are experiencing that connection or being forced in some ways to go inside? Is it because of the acceleration, or is it causing the acceleration, or what's the process here?
It's not that it's causing the acceleration, it's a reflection of the acceleration. Your consciousness is ultimately the cause. When we say your consciousness, we're referring to all of you. And not just all of your species, we're referring to your entire planet. So because all of you have chosen to accelerate, the physical reality experience that you were previously creating that was more out of alignment with your true self, out of alignment with nature, was no longer compatible with that acceleration. And because that entire paradigm was a collective dream that you were all having, a new collective dream is now required that is vibrationally compatible with the acceleration. So this sort of cocooning that you're all going through, this sort of isolation period that you're all going through, is an opportunity for you all to go inside of your consciousness, inside of yourself, so to say. So you can redream in a more positive way your preferred self, your preferred life, your preferred world. So you can then take actions in your life that represent that new preferred collective reality. And as your civilization opens back up, that collective reality that you are all dreaming, that is more resonant with your passion, will then be what your species experiences. So the contraction is a reflection of the reworking, so to say, of your collective paradigm, so you can all experience more of your preference.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, and hang out if you want to, and we'll maybe get Geraldine to jump in and see. Do you want to channel something with Ryoke still here, or you want to just jump in on your own? I mean, what way you want to?
I kind of just channel as I speak.
Okay.
So whatever you'd like to discuss.
Well, I'd like to discuss the transformation and the DNA reprogramming that you work with.
Mhm.
And maybe Rio could comment or something. Let's just see how it goes.
Okay. So, our what I was able to understand through the work that I was doing, through looking at my own holographic expression, and by kind of, in a sense, remote viewing the universe and the structure of the universe, is that everything is kind of designed in a fractal within a fractal within a fractal. And that goes all the way down to our genetic code. And in reality, the genetic code is very much a holographic expression that is storing massive amounts of information that we have the ability of either activating or kind of having parts of that dormant. What we know as our proper DNA, our genetic code, is showing, for example, the genetic expression of this physical body. But what we want to look at is the dark DNA, or the DNA that is not physically understandable or translatable, And what's there is kind of an imprint, a holographic imprint of this system that we are, that is more than just physical. We're looking at fragments of ourselves that are interdimensional, which means that our human body, from the chakra system, from the root up into the 13th chakra, we have access to every single one of those dimensional planes. And in those dimensional planes, we encounter extraterrestrial beings, these extraterrestrial beings that we can tap into, we can connect to. But we are all one. So in fact, they are fragments of our own self that we tap into, that we connect. And so when a lot of people, when we talk about this discussion of coming into an awakening and becoming aware of these ET expressions, it's through the activation of our DNA, in other words, self-awareness, consciousness, becoming aware of itself, we access these parts of ourselves. We access this higher wisdom, higher knowledge, and this is where people can tap into, their star lineages, which, again, we are everything, and we're living them simultaneously in this present moment. We have access to every single one of those technologies, the consciousness within those timelines, even, that we can bring into the present body here and now. And that's kind of the most amazing thing of the human. Just like the universe, every single point of the universe that you're in, the universe looks like it's expanding. So we are those points where our creation is unfolding from our perception and what we're kind of, projecting into reality. So we're co-creating. There's some of those projections, and some of those we're tapping into fragments of ourselves that we've been working with for a long time. So, when we talk about DNA reprogramming, what we're wanting to do is deprogram from the programming that we've come into the physical 3D plane, being born into this kind of compartmentalized reality that really made it so that we are looking at separation as a reality, right? And so that's the idea. How we can sense, feel through the five senses is by, seeing what's immediately in front of us instead of the invisible body, the part of us that's non-physical. So through DNA reprogramming, we look at what epigenetics talks about, is how our environment, how our emotions, how what we eat affects and rewrites the code that we are. But this goes beyond that. We can rewrite and regenerate the entire physical body, but we can also, beyond that, tap in and activate superpowers within the body that are even more powerful regenerative communication techniques that allow the body to come into the next level dimensional plane. It's now coming from this contractive being expression into an expansive expression, which is basically one with the universe. And I think that's kind of the purpose of the human through this physical body, temporary experience, is to return from that fragmentation into that whole awareness of all, basically.
You talk about, you're hinting at the ascension process, really. This is the supernatural elements that I think this time is all about, right? I mean, is that what you're getting at, the ability of the body to move into light?
Exactly. But really, ascension is a natural process of this entire multiverse. Just the way that this multiverse moves and functions is in a cyclical form, that we are moving in and out of multiple dimensions simultaneously. And so what we're doing is, through our human expression based on the coding that we have, our DNA is storing the information that is within the Akashic records. The Akashic records is an expression of, it's basically like a DNA for the planet Earth in this dimensional timeline. And so when we tap into that information, we're tapping into what's pertinent to the Earth. But we have access to more than that. We have access to timelines that are beyond this, current dimensional matrix universe that we're a part of. So what that means is that, ascension is really something that's happening in the now, multidimensionally. So we are moving from fourth to fifth dimension, 12 to 13, so on and so forth. We are constantly moving in and out of those depending on what we're activating within the physical DNA. Ascension is just how much you disconnect from, or let's say, become aware of all the programming that you've taken on for centuries within the Akashic records, so that you're no longer coming back into the reincarnation cycle or being a vibrational match to this three-dimensional plane. And most of us, we think that we're stuck within that experiential loop, but it's actually when we come into awareness of our consciousness that we can choose free will, right, to make the choices. And that free will is basically choosing between fear and unconditional love, either destruction, contraction, or expansion, creation. So as we're choosing through those in our life, we're choosing what our expression will be. And that expression makes us a vibrational match for every next experience, every next timeline that we're tapping into and activating within us.
So when you work with people one-on-one and to do the reprogramming, how do you get in? How do you actually get into those levels that are not even conscious?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a hypnotherapist as well. And so I use a lot of hypnotherapy techniques in order to bring people into a state of much deeper awareness. We come into the subconscious mind. And because I can see the multidimensional body with their permission, I tap into their body and I begin to see everything: cords, attachments, entities that are within the space. All of these limiting beliefs manifest in the physical form, literally. And we see them like hot spots or stagnant energy within the body. So what that is stored information of belief systems that have not been properly processed through psychologically, emotionally, and energetically in the body. So what we do is we untangle that information, we go to the root cause of it, and what we're doing is we're accessing when fragmentation was caused, because what happens to us is we become fragmented through trauma, and we end up being like an entire explosion of fragmentations that link us. They are the cords that tie us to the vibrational frequency of being attached to this three-dimensional plane. So as we undo those cords, we kind of take back, we are reintegrating the fragments of this soul in order to become that one again. And that's part of this human experience in the three-dimensional plane. So I see everything that they're seeing, I feel everything that they're feeling, and it helps me guide them gently through what's necessary for their highest expression. And sometimes some things are not to be touched. Some things are necessary for a person to go through, even through suffering. But we gently guide through the aspects of themselves that are required in order to help raise that vibrational frequency through awareness. And yeah.
No, you just go in and you see where they need that restructuring.
Exactly. It's very much an emotional, energetic, and holographic, because we are these giant biostructures of holographic information, and it's stored within the chakra system, within our multidimensional body, And so what I've noticed more is that people are tuning into their star aspects of themselves, their alien aspects, their interdimensional aspects, and it's very interesting. And I think this is part of what we were talking about earlier, how the veil is also lifting, but we're also coming close to the contact idea. And what I'm seeing is that the contact is very much an individual internal thing, because we are activating our fragments that are extraterrestrial. So we tap into those lines of information. So we're more and more, as we go into the next 5 years, literally, like Ryoke was saying, we're literally activating and accessing that information, more
Beautiful.
easily. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you. Justin, any comment, or Sarah or Ryoke?
No, I mean, maybe to tie into, we can ask Ryoke on a bit of what his interpretation of that is, or what do you like to add something?
Yeah.
Ryoke?
From our point of view, the information that is shared represents a perspective that is in alignment with, again, what we have described as the preparatory work play to allow for your species to become more vibrationally compatible with extraterrestrial beings. So it's a perspective that for many people resonates with them, resonates with their belief system. So for many, these types of techniques, these types of permission slips will be very efficacious.
Correct.
So understand, you all have, in a sense, different archetypal configurations that represent the major themes your souls have chosen to explore through the incarnation. So certain techniques, certain modalities, certain perspectives will really resonate with many of you who have archetypes that are energetically resonant with those particular techniques. So for those of you that are attracted to these types of techniques, understand it's highly probable they will be very effective to assist you in really accelerating your relationship with yourself so you can experience more of your multidimensional nature.
Great. Yes. Sarah, do you want to come in and did you have anything else, Geraldine, or we come back to you? Okay. Yes, Sarah, why don't you comment on how you work with the kind of, it's similar, I think, and you can even do some light language demonstration if you want. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I can do some light language, or I can go further into trance and
Yeah, go into trance. Go further.
yeah, and then you can have a dialogue if you want. And light language will most likely come through anyway.
Okay.
So, okay. Sure. Okay. Ah, yes. Oh, okay. Yes. Okay. Yes, we are here. Yes. Oh, yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Yes, we present ourselves forward. Thank you. Thank you. So, Korimiya, aha, and here you are as well. We are co-creating in this moment, are we not? Yes, very much so. Right now, as we are all gathered as one in this very moment. And this is what you will see developing, happening more and more, this sense of knowing that there is a constant co-creation. Yes, this sense of awareness that there is not one moment, 1 second here that you are not co-creating, yes? And as you come to understand this and come to know this, you will wield a great sense of power, a great sense of knowing that you are not alone. And this, yes, this conversation is where we are headed. We are headed in that very, very space of knowing that you are not alone. And as humanity rotates forward, and yes, we say rotates forward because it is a rotation in your evolution. Yes, is it not? And as you rotate forward into knowing this, a sense of return has come upon this planet. Yes, a sense of return to knowing that there is this oneness, this sense of brotherhood and sisterhood amongst all, not just one species, but all. Yes. And so as we are gathered here together in this era, in this knowing, this return to self, you are in a sense becoming liberated of everything you are not. Yes, is this not true? So let us dance in this liberation, yes, and set ourselves